So I've got a few little torques in here, a few little Allen keys, but only the ones that are required. Spare brake pads, they're used brake pads, but if I totally wear mine out, these are better than nothing. These little CO2 cartridges are handy for, the small ones are handy for small tires, but for big tires, you generally have to go to a bigger volume of CO2. If it's a tubeless tire, you're going to need a sudden rush of air to get it to bead, right? And there's not enough in this to do it. You're going to need more volume to get it to pop and hold. The magnet, if you drop it in the motor, if you drop it in the carburetor, you drop it somewhere you can't even see it, you can fish around underneath your skid plate. There it is, there's the bolt. Down in beside the rad, whatever. You'd be amazed where things go. Drops in the grass. You might find it. Electrical tape, it's not just for electrical use. You can hold your luggage on with that if you really try. A little bit of WD-40 goes a long way. You can clean stuff. You can de-water things with it. In a pinch, if you had to wring out your air filter, you could at least spray it with something that's got a little bit of oil on it. I wouldn't go too long like that though. This is handy for bearings. We've had bearings dry right up. You can, if you carry a little pick with you, you can actually pull a seal, trail side. If you had a little squeeze of grease, you could put grease into that and keep going. Even though that bearing dried right up and it was squealing for the last 3 miles, you can get out of there if you take some time, pop the seal off it, get something in there, anything. WD-40 wouldn't go too far, but some kind of grease or oil, you could tip the bike over, get a little oil inside there, put that seal back on, put it back on the bike. You'd be amazed, you can get out, right? If you go too long, that'll lock right up. If it's a long trip, and you typically only go 20,000 kilometers on a set of wheel bearings, you should know your bike, right? If it only goes about that far and your trip's going to be 30,000 kilometers, you should have some wheel bearings with you. If there are circlips anywhere on your bike, you should have the tool to work with them. Again, you got to know your bike. So take your bike apart, take the wheels off it, have a good look at it. Are your wheel bearings held in with circlips? Then you better get the right tool and carry it. This is something I only carry on big trips. This is for knocking out the bearings, putting them back in. If you were doing it at home, you would use some round fixtures to do it properly, but a punch will do it if you do it properly. Only hit the race that you want to move in. Don't be smashing on the inner race to try and get the outer one to seat. You're wrecking the bearing before you even put it in. A lot of people don't know it, but you can start it by tapping it around lightly, and then work your way down on the outer race to seat it. Never smash on the inside. Epoxy. So you've wiped out and you've punched a big hole in your motor. So there are stick versions. You slice off a piece of this, you knead it like little silica putty. It starts to get warm, use it. Squeeze it in there. If the hole is on the side of the bike, lay the bike down, get that part elevated, clean it off as much as you can. Put the goop to it, let it dry, take your time. You might as well wait. It's better than have a hole in your motor.
Now is quick steel similar to epoxy?
Yes, it is epoxy, yeah, made from metal. JB Weld and this sort of stuff is really liquidy, whereas this is a putty, and you can work with it. You can actually putty it and put this on top of it as well if you want to get a really nice seal. You still got 5,000 kilometers to go.
I carried the liquid stuff off-road doing a lot of aggressive riding, and then one day I took my giant loot bag off. The hole inside of it was just ruptured with fluid, with stuff, because it hit a tool or just the way I landed on it or something like that. The putty, it's putty, nothing's going to happen.
Variety pack of typical metric small bolts. You'll find on your bike that a lot of them are pretty special. They've got this big mushroom head, or maybe it's got a Torx. It's only so long. Get to know your bike again. Carry a little variety pack of typical bolts. Even these funny little washers, right? You might use them for a completely different purpose, but they're handy as hell. That didn't take up much room. Right?
And notice he didn't bother, he's not putting them in a Ziploc bag or in a container. He's dual purpose here. It goes in the rag he's going to use to clean the oil up or do whatever he's using it, right? So when you're packing things, think about, well, am I really going to use this Ziploc bag? Or will I use the rag more than the Ziploc bag? So, you can kind of pack that way too to really help. So you're saving on space, saving on weight, and becoming, no pun intended, dual purpose stuff.
So here's some JD Weld and some rubber cement and some patches in a bag. So if these do rupture, they're still in the bag. You need a way of pumping up your tire. So as a minimum, you can use a tire pump, bicycle pump. Bigger tires require more air. So you've got CO2, there's store-bought motorcycle-friendly air compressors, are really handy. If you are prying away on your rim, you might mark it up. These slip in and protect the rim. We're going to use them. If it's a tubeless tire, you don't have to carry this massive set, but there's a Canadian Tire version of this. It's like $6 or Princess Auto, whatever. And some of these, at least a couple strips of these. These are already tacky. You don't always need to use lubricant on these, but some of them recommend that you do use it, right? The patch solvent will also work on these. Let's say you get a nail in the tire. Tire goes flat, do your little inspection. Oh, there it is, there's a nail. You pull it out with your pliers, have a good look at it. Does it look like it's going to be about that size or less, right? Can I fix it with what I've got? Yes. Rough it out to get any junk out of there. Rough it up. So there's a smaller kit than this. This is a big shop one, right? Rough it out. Some of them just looks like a file sort of surface. This one's sort of a corkscrew. So you run it, clean it, rough it up. You don't want it smooth. You want something that this can adhere to, right? So you thread it on, put it through here. See how it's got a gap at the top? Can you see that at all? There's a gap, split here, right? Feed it on, push it through, work it a bit, pull out. It should stay in there, right? That little work created a little knot on the inside, and you pull up. So you're left with two little strands hanging out the top, and you can nip them off with a knife or just leave it, right? This actually has a little razor blade to cut it down flat. That will plug the hole, then you need a way to inflate it.
So, Kevin, you were saying one of those CO2s, one of those big 45-gram CO2s will pretty much do an adventure tire,
Right.
with possibly a little left over if you're lucky.
Probably not. So a rear tire, a
Yeah.
150, that'll do the tire.
One-time shot.
One time, yeah.
One-time shot.
Right. It's been packed and it's foiled over. Inside of here, there's either a needle, or in this case, it's just a sharp wedge that comes down. You wind it down, you break the foil, and then you put this on the tire, locked, and you open. So the cartridge now sprays into the tire, right? Generally, it's a one-shot deal. You can use it. The more you wind this in there, the more you break the foil. There is a point where you reach the end of the stroke and that's it. And you've got a leak path around it. So sometimes you can get a seal for later. Don't count on it. Do it with purpose. Have it ready, stage yourself properly, have it on the wheel, then break the seal and go. Otherwise you might waste it. This has got to be wound down tight to tighten against the rubber seal in there. Make sure that was backed off all the way before you wind this in. Otherwise you puncture it and you waste it up past the threads. You just waste it.
If you get any dirt at all in there, and even just like smallest little pebble, you can barely see it, kind of like the same dirt that gets in your carburetor and sticks your pilot jet and things don't run, it won't seal. So like Kevin was saying, you're going to thread it on, and if you're not ready to put on your tire immediately, you could have it on all the way, puncture the cartridge, and it's just going to go psh, and you lost all of your air. So I'll bring a toothbrush, an old toothbrush, and I'll get it in there and I'll check that, I'll blow it out, and I'll do that about 10 times to make sure it's perfect. And if you do get this on right and it's tight, it will hold for the day. For example, one day I was like, okay, you know what, I'm going on the road. When you're on the road and you've got like 8 pounds or 12 pounds of pressure in your back tire or front tire, you're all over the place. I like to pump my air up if I know I'm going to jump on the road for the rest of the afternoon to get home. I'll use this, I'll pump it up, right? Oh, I'm going to hit some trail. I release a little bit of air from my tires. Oh, I got to go back on the road for a long period of time. This will hold, if you apply it properly, it'll hold the air for you all day long or maybe longer. But it's most of the time is when they don't work is if you've gotten a rock or a piece of dirt in there and it's kind of molded the O-ring or something and it just won't seal. So theoretically, if it's clean and you screw this on and you do it tight and properly, it'll hold. Well, it has for me anyway.
So take care of the package of stuff so you don't get any dirt in there.
Right.
So these ones happen to come with their own little pouch. Ziplocs are about 10 cents each.
Sometimes I'll do, depending on how I pack my thing, I'll just kind of screw it on gently so it doesn't puncture.
Yeah, that's this one is.
Yeah, and then that'll keep the dirt out of it. And I'll have everything ready. So at the last second when I'm about to start,
pierce the seal.
Right, I'm about to put the air in my
It's already
tire.
on the tire.
Yeah.
One last.
Right. Yeah. Like I say, I mean, it's not perfect, right? It's not like it's an air compressor sitting beside you. It's fully sealed. But like I said, sometimes if I have dirt, it'll rush out. I'm like, oh, okay, good. My tire right on. Thank goodness. But if not,
This kit is awesome, by the way. So it's got the big cartridges. It's got your file. It's got your applicator. It's got a few strings and a little bag.
Yep.
Good to go. I think it all fits in there. Keeps it all nice and clean. And if in doubt, you can even fit your instructions in that.
small thing of talcum powder or baby powder. It's light, and if you can bring it along, it's great for monkey butt if you happen to get that too riding on the trail. And it'll just enough on here, it'll help it slip right in, and it won't bind up when you're trying to put your tube in.
If you are riding a tubeless tire and you get a huge hole, something you figure you can't fix with these little pieces of licorice, then you'll have to pull the tire right off and patch it from the inside. Right? So you take the foil off, lubricate this up with rubber cement, push through, pull it, press it down. That'll cover a huge wound in your tire. Right?
How about the sidewall?
Yeah, that'll work on the sidewall. It's not recommended. It's not
Well, you're not going to do 100 miles an hour.
right.
afterwards, but-
You want to get out of there, right? It's a big patch on the inside of your wheel, and it's not going to go anywhere because it's held. Right? Pull that through. Have some patience. Let the glue dry. Nip it off. Away you go. I've got a 950 and I run it with knobbies all the time. Because if I see a trail, I want to go down. Right? I don't want to be restricted by my tires. Right? I go through a lot of tires, but I can go anywhere. So at least put something aggressive on the front. That may save your butt on a gravel road. Right? You can't be very aggressive on the front brake with a knobby on the front because you'll just ruin it. But it'll probably save your day. Pirelli Scorpion knobbies are good. They don't last long, but boy do they work. It's a soft compound and it will stick to a rock in full lean. It'll hold. Right? Stuff with a soft compound. Basically, you go. If you're riding on a hard surface, you get a soft compound. If you're riding in soft stuff, you get hard compound. So you're riding in sand all day, you get a tough, hard tire, right? That's the rule of thumb for tires. The hard compound will last longer, so you get more miles out of it, but it won't stick very well in rain, just because it's hard. It's not gripping every little thing. Right? Go as aggressive as you can to get the most grip.